mother and a caregiver head to court this morning, charged in the death of a 14-year-old boy
More
with
details
autism.
about the death of a teenager with autism. His mother and godmother
face murder charges in connection with the stabbing death of 14-year-old
Prosecutors call it a cold, calculated, and premeditated murder mapped out over the course of a week.
This is a story about a child, a teenager from Chicago with severe autism, a child who was mute, severely impacted by autism, and suffering severe gastrointestinal problems. Not an uncommon story, one that we come across quite a lot. The unusual circumstances of this child is that we were brought in at a stage when he was in locked 4-point restraints in a major teaching hospital in Chicago, with a mother desperate for help, saying, "My child has terrible medical problems, gastrointestinal problems, he's in pain, please help him." No one is helping him. So we, as the Autism Media Channel and the A-Team, the autism team, went in, drove him to see the world's expert in pediatric gastroenterology for autism, Dr. Arthur Krigsman in New York. He was investigated. He had severe ulceration of his stomach, which would have caused you and I absolute agony. We would be rolling around on the floor in pain if we had what this child had.
He has the inflammatory bowel disease that we see in children with autism. His stomach is studded with these lesions, these ulcers, these small tiny ulcers, and there were too many to count.
And he'd been suffering it for a long, long time without any intervention. We then got him the right treatment. Sadly, when he went back to Chicago, there was nowhere for him to go. He was ultimately admitted to another hospital, put back in restraints, put on 3 very, very powerful psychotropic medications, just deteriorated beyond recognition. Mother said his suffering is unimaginable. And then when the insurance ran out, he was put out on the street. Unable to bear the strain and stress any longer, 1 week later, his mother and his godmother attempted to take his life, ultimately killing him and failing to take their own lives. Now they are in Cook County maximum security prison, awaiting trial on murder 1.
Well, we filmed lots of families with autism. Dorothy was a mother absolutely desperate to get help for her child. So there was no particular, the difference I suppose that had been in the news, but there was no particular difference in Alex's story than most of the stories that we report on. I think the most important thing about why this story is told is because of the ending.
Alex's story came on the back of a series of films that we've been making about getting children better, taking broken families, getting them the right diagnosis and treatment, and showing them afterwards. And Alex was meant to be another example of that. We were called in as an emergency to help the family, and our aim was to get his gastrointestinal problems diagnosed and treated and show the family before and after. Clearly things did not turn out that way, and as Alex's story progressed and as the family unit fell apart and his mother and his godmother eventually killed him, then it became a story in its own right, quite different from the others. And so what we're trying to do in the additional features that we're including in the DVD is to provide examples of stories where it has gone right, what the outcome to Alex's story might have been had things gone differently. John Ed was a child from the UK suffering exactly the same kinds of problems from which Alex suffered.
Yeah, I mean, well, okay, so there's no difference between Alex's story and John Edward's story. They were both very, very sick children, and they were both completely unable to get help. But the ending of it could have been exactly the same. The difference is Ali came back to her house. She had a roof over her head. She had a husband who was supportive. She had friends and a big community around her that supported her. Dorothy had no one. There was Dorothy and Agatha and Alex. No house, nowhere to live, no support.
Personally, I'm furious about what happened to Alex. It's a breach of fundamental medical principles. The way in which to deal with that anger is to try and take the positive from it, try and tell the story, and try and get justice not only for the family, but as a lasting legacy for Alex Spourdalakisa.
You couldn't make this up. It was the worst situation, and we all failed her. In the end, everybody failed her. Everyone failed Alex.
It's the same story. Wherever you go in the world, it is the same story. These children are suffering in the same way. This is a worldwide problem, and therefore this documentary has a worldwide audience. There is no question about that. And we need to change this pervasively on a worldwide basis. Our understanding of autism has to alter dramatically if we're going to prevent similar catastrophes elsewhere in the world.
The ending is what I'm most worried about. I feel that there's going to be a lot more deaths, there's going to be a lot more parents taking children's lives, not because they don't like the autism, but because they simply cannot take the suffering of their child anymore.
In order that no child ever suffers the same treatment that Alex did at the hands of the medical profession, or indeed his family received, then we need to have a fundamental grassroots change in the perception of what autism is. To recognise that it is a medical condition and to treat it and investigate it appropriately so that that can be corrected. That underlying medical condition can be corrected, that children can be made physically as well as they possibly can be, so that then the other issues, the behavioural issues, can be addressed when all of those other things have been taken away or ameliorated to the extent they can be. And until we treat autism as a medical condition that is amenable to therapy, is amenable to intervention, is amenable to improving children dramatically, then we will continue to see this same kind of catastrophic outcome.
What should have happened is straight from when Alex was seen by Dr. Krigsman and got the diagnosis of severe bowel disease, we should have brought Alex to a recovery home. All of us got in there and helped him, helped the mother with the diet, given the mother a rest. Sleep, Dorothy, we got this with Alex. All of those things that drove her crazy and drove it to the awful ending we had, all of them could have been prevented. There was nothing for Alex accommodation-wise. That's why we've got to build the Alexa Spourdalakisa recovery homes, so that this does not happen again.
Sadly, Alex's story is not unique, and what we've tried to represent in the documentary is other examples of the same kind of tragedy, attempted or real murder-suicides that is so tragic in this community, and we're going to see far more. There's no question, with the rising numbers of autism, the fact that children are aging out, they're becoming young adults, they're big and strong, there's out of control in many cases. Parents can't cope, parents are getting older and infirm. This kind of thing is going to become more commonplace, and that's why the film is so important. Bring that kind of insight into people's attention, so that they understand what the future holds if we don't do something now. My training in medicine led me to believe that the most important thing you'll ever hear is the individual story, what people tell you about themselves or about their child's symptoms, that leads you to understand what their diagnosis is and therefore how to treat them. So it's the individual story. And what we've realised now as filmmakers is that telling individual stories is so much more powerful than just quoting statistics, just telling you how many people are affected by autism. If people can engage with the story of one individual suffering and the suffering of the family of that individual that goes along with the diagnosis of autism, then people will start to get it. People will relate to it. And so telling these stories is what we are going to do. And we're going to go on doing it until we have captured the hearts and minds of the agnostic. Not the people who already know, but the people who are out there who think they know but really don't understand what is going on. Please get involved. Please watch these films. Please get them out to people who do not know, do not yet understand, and help us spread the word.